Welcome to Off the Bench podcast, where this week's guest is the leading woman of British tennis, Katie Boulter. She's had the season of her life, breaking into the world's top 30 for the very first time. During the episode, she chatted about some of the challenges she's overcome in her career, including a serious back injury and chronic fatigue, what it's like to go into Wimbledon as the British number one, and how her and her boyfriend, Alex De Minaur, feel about being tennis's leading couple. We really hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us on Off the Bench. I know it's grass court season is upon us, so it's kind of like the busiest time of year in a way for British players in particular. So thanks so much. So this is a podcast all about talking to women in sport about kind of barriers they might face or challenges they might have overcome and how they kind of found ways to succeed. Obviously, you've had a brilliant career so far, but you've also had a lot of challenges that you've overcome. So I kind of wanted to dive right in and take you maybe back to when you first started playing tennis as a 5-year-old, I think. I know you come from a tennis family, but what's your kind of core memory from just starting in tennis? What's the thing that sticks in your mind?
Oh gosh, I have so many memories from when I was a young kid. I also have a lot of photos. My mum used to love videos and photos, so I've watched a lot of those things back. But my very fondest memories when I was a child probably stemmed from Leicestershire Lawn Tennis Club, which is where I started playing tennis. And my mum was a tennis coach there, and it was just like a very local, lovely club. My grandparents lived across the road, so any spare time that I got, I would go over, and they had a practice wall, and I spent half my life just trying to entertain myself on that practice wall. And they actually still have it now. It kind of gives me flashbacks every time I drive to my grandparents' house. So they were the people that got me into tennis, especially my mom, and she was always coaching. So whenever I was waiting for her, I was playing with a tennis ball, whether it was hitting it over the net with some of the other kids or just by myself. I was a little bit obsessed.
I mean, you must have been obsessed because you were a really prominent junior. You did really well as a junior. You were a finalist at the Orange Bowl, which is kind of like this huge event as a junior. You've got people like Andy Murray was a finalist. I think Roger Federer was a finalist as well. I wonder, I'm always fascinated about kind of athletes who do really well as juniors, because that comes with so much fun involved, but also can come with pressure. I just wonder, what was it like for you as a junior? Do you look back on that time and think it was just all really positive, or was it sometimes kind of a bit overwhelming as well to be one of the best junior players, also one of the best junior players in Britain? That comes with a certain level of pressure too.
Yeah, I think I was in quite a lucky position because I reached top 10 as a junior. I played all the Grand Slams. I was thrown in the deep end where I had new experiences every single week. But I think that really helped me as I went through the different tours. I think, just knowing the small things, so knowing where the changing rooms are, knowing where the physio might be, it kind of really helped me feel comfortable in a lot of situations. So I think that massively was a positive for me, getting those opportunities. But at the same time, it is also very overwhelming. It is something that you're not used to, and you're also sacrificing a lot from a very young age. And sometimes as a kid, you just want to go and play and be with your friends, and you got to find a really fine balance with that. And yeah, I played, I traveled, I did a lot of things when I was young, and I think it was really good for me. But at the same time, it was a life lesson. It was something that I wanted to learn from, and I was always intrigued as to where I was going to go within tennis. And things aren't set in stone, and you just never know, so you got to keep working hard.
I was going to say one of your early challenges, and a big challenge you had, was in your kind of mid-teens, struggling with chronic fatigue. Am I right in thinking you literally kind of struggled to get out of bed a lot of the time for a few months, and you kind of had to put tennis on hold for, was it like 6, 7, 8 months?
Yeah, I had a long period of time out of the sport, and I think that was quite a pivotal moment in my career. I think spending a bit of time away from my daily life, which is all I kind of knew as a young kid, it really showed me the passion that I had for the sport. Obviously there were moments where I really struggled to get out of bed and struggled to go to training and do things. And I think that's why we put it on hold, and just to try and get back to a normal level of human life. And, it really did show me a lot. And I think I learned so much from that moment that I knew I wanted to stay in tennis, and I knew I wanted to keep going. And I think I learned I was a fighter at that stage. And, you're pretty early on in your life to be learning these things. And it is something that I don't take for granted. And I definitely am glad that it happened, because I wouldn't be here today without it. But yeah, that was a tough spot to be in.
I was going to say, like, thinking back to me as a teenager, I was like a fairly active teenager, and I cannot imagine being kind of put in that position. You were a top kind of elite athlete at that point, looking ahead to a really positive career. Did you kind of have moments of doubt and think, like, maybe it won't happen for me, maybe I won't be able to come back from this?
Yeah, I think you always have moments of doubts. I think that is part of sport. It is also part of life. And it's how you deal with those moments, I think, that really define you as a person. And, you play a lot of tennis, but also at the same time, you want to have a life and you don't want to get too wrapped up into it. But yeah, I think I'm quite a stubborn character. I think I knew I always wanted to get to where I wanted to get to, and I wasn't going to stop until I got to that space. And it took me probably a little bit longer than a lot of people, and I think my stubbornness showed that I wasn't going to go anywhere, and that's probably the reason why I am here today.
It's cool to hear you talk about kind of how that made you realize how much you love tennis in a way, because I think maybe other juniors might not get that lesson until maybe they have their first injury as an older player, once on tour. And for you to have got that lesson so early probably has benefited you. I'm sure it must have helped you with your resilience, even when you had kind of your serious injury in 2019, your back fracture. I mean, do you think it did help you? I wonder if that's the right assumption to make, I guess.
No, I mean, I'm a strong believer in, I think everything happens for a reason, and I feel like that taught me something massive in that moment, and it set me up for the rest of my career and really helped me deal with the things that came my way afterwards. I think, it's a tough moment when you're in it to realize how hard it is to get out of a situation like that. But the fact that I did, that gave me the strength going into a lot of the injuries that I had afterwards, and knowing that I could come out the other side. And I think that really definitely helped me.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a lot of people who know about your career wouldn't have known that about your kind of story, the kind of, the challenges you had as a teenager. It's, like you say, a lot to go through as a young person, but you've obviously continued to thrive. You've carried on your career. You got to the top where you wanted to be. And I've always, it's always really come through for you how much you thrive representing your country. It's something, when you've played Fed Cup, now Billie Jean King Cup, it's you've always you've had that fighting spirit for Great Britain in a way that really shines through. You talk about it a lot, and I wonder when you look back on 2019, when you got the back injury while playing for Great Britain, it was such a positive moment in your career, but it also came with like a huge injury that put you out for about a year. I wonder how you look back on that all, because it showed, on the one hand, a really big part of your character and who you are as a player, and how kind of proud you are to represent Great Britain, but also it came with a huge challenge. And I just wonder, is it weird to kind of look back on, and how do you think about it now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I've thought about a lot. I've spent a lot of time wondering, probably during the injury, if I'd made a mistake pushing through the injury, or if I would do it again in that situation. And it's funny, because I was actually talking about it the other day with someone, and they asked me the question, if I would do it again, would I push through it? And with an instant, I said, yeah, I 100%, I would push through anything for my country. I'm very patriotic. I'm someone who will put my heart on the line playing for my country. And I think that's been instilled in me from a very young age. I think I was 7 years old when I first put on my Great Britain jacket, and ever since then I haven't been able to shake it off. I think it's something that it's one of the biggest pinnacles in sport to be able to do, is represent your country, and I definitely don't take that lightly. But yeah, I mean, the back injury itself, I played that match at Copper Box, and I came back a couple of years later after I'd been through this whole situation, and come out the other side of it, where I played at the Copper Box again. I played another tie. I played Billie Jean King Cup. And it was quite eerie. It was like I actually got goosebumps walking back in there and knowing that that's a huge part of my life, and that's what's going to set me up for the rest of my life. And I lost a lot of time, which of course I regret, but at the same time, that's a memory, and that feeling of winning that match is something that I will never ever put down, because I think it's up there as one of the biggest matches in my career, and I don't think I would change it for anything. But of course, in the moment, sometimes you have these thoughts that creep into your mind and give you questions, but deep down, I know my answers, and I know that I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, I think that kind of shows what an important moment it was in your career trajectory. For the positive, the negative obviously that came with the injury, but the positive was that you kind of pushed through a really tricky match, and you kind of led the British team in a way that maybe hadn't happened for you before, and it was really kind of pivotal. I'm sure a lot of fans of yours will remember that match more than lots of others. I wonder, after the injury, can you pinpoint a moment where you thought, okay, I'm back, a moment on the court, a match? Because like I said, you had about a year off, then the pandemic came, so it kind of like it stopped your momentum a little bit. Can you pinpoint any match, any moment where you were like, okay, I'm back, and I've still got so much ahead of me?
Yeah, I mean, I actually had a lot of things obviously going on with COVID as well at the same time, but I had actually one match where I played in Indian Wells, and it was right before it got cancelled, and I played a really, really good, actually two matches in a row, and I thought to myself, I'm back, I'm ready to go, I'm here, I finally got my level after 8, 9, 10 months, and I feel like it's really starting to build a bit of momentum. Then obviously, literally the following week on the Monday, we got cancelled in Indian Wells and sent home, and that was obviously the beginning of a travesty, which obviously happened, and a lot of long months in between that period. So for me, it was almost like a challenge mentally to reset again and almost have another injury during that COVID period, where I was at home again and I was stuck in my room doing gym, and that is literally it was a hard one for me, especially. I think it hit me pretty hard, especially after the last few months that I'd had. But that was one match that I remember. And then following that, I think I was building quite a lot of momentum, once I'd gotten a few matches going. But look, I mean, my grass court swing, that was probably my biggest one. And obviously, because I'd missed it for a couple of years, to actually be back playing on the grass, I just wanted to enjoy the moment, and I think that really helped me at that time.
Which would have been the first time you reached, was it the first time you reached the third round? Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that was that was a big moment for me. I also played I played Pliskova in the week before as well, and got my first top 10 win. So I think that's when I really realized that it was a huge moment for me, and it was my chance to get back to where I really wanted to get back to, and use the opportunity and keep going.
Yeah, I wonder, because that top 10 win is something I remember, because I know that for so many years in your career, so many people, kind of pundits and commentators, have always spoken about all the potential you have, all the kind of Katie has the potential to be top 30, top 20, all of these kinds of things. And I'm sure you had that belief as well, but to kind of put it into practice on the court and actually beat the top players would maybe be one when you kind of think, okay, this was, I was right. This was all worth it. And all these months have come to something really important for me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a moment that I think strongly made me believe. I think I always felt like I had this potential, and I could always play with the best in the world. And at that moment, it's like when you get it in black and white and you can't start thinking about the gray area is when you know that you've done something well. And it's some of the best tennis that I played, and I think it just reminded me that, you know, all the work that I've put in, all the tough moments, they're all worth it. It's just to keep going, and it really motivated me. And I think that's what, you know, can get quite stale when you're having a tough season. I think, you know, it's the motivation that you struggle with, but getting wins like that really pushes you on and really drives you forward.
Can I ask, because you've probably had more time on the sidelines than a lot of other players at kind of similar stages in their careers. What keeps you sane in those moments? What do you do? What are the things that help you? Like a stupid thing that you might do, something that might bring you comfort. I just wonder, because it's hard to kind of be still when you're a tennis player that travels the world and is used to kind of all that kind of pace of life, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually had a conversation with one of the younger players about this very recently, that, you know, it's pretty tough on the tour. You're traveling, you know, a lot of weeks, and you kind of have to find the little things in life that you enjoy doing on the road that really help you feel at home. And for me, actually, one of the biggest things that I found was just going for a coffee. I mean, I love finding great coffee places. I'm lucky enough to travel and be privileged enough to find these places and have the time to do it. So for me, if I can find a good coffee, that kickstarts my day. And that's like a little routine that now I keep, that I go to the same one every morning, and I go and get a coffee with my team. And that's sort of where I keep it with my head, and it keeps me together. And obviously now I share that a bit more with Alex and his team, and he has the same culture as I do. So, you know, we all kind of go as two massive teams to this small little coffee shop in the middle of nowhere, and I think everyone wonders where on earth we've turned up from. But yeah, it's like our little thing that we love to do.
I was going to say, find your local, which makes you kind of feel more grounded. That's pretty cool. On Alex, obviously, that's not a new part of your career, but a new part maybe in terms of you sharing it a bit more with people, and you guys being a bit more public with your relationship. I wonder, what is that like, being, yeah, a tennis couple? Because there's been a lot of attention around tennis in the last few months in particular, like things like movies and like challenges, for example, and people talking about kind of relationships in tennis. I just wonder what is the reality of being a tennis couple?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating one, because I think, you know, there's a lot of people that think it's super easy, and then a lot of people that are like, oh God, no, I couldn't share my work with my personal life. And I think it's a massive balance. Like, you have to be, firstly, you have to have the right morals to align, and you have to share the same feeling that tennis is always the priority. And I think from day one, we both always talked about that tennis was the priority. Everything else can come after that, and we'll make it work around it. And I think that's the start. And then from there, it's like a push and pull. It's like you kind of have to go with your feelings a little bit. There are some days where I want to step up and support him no matter what. And then there's also days that I need to take a break from tennis and I need to step away. And I think that's where it's really nice having someone that completely understands what you're going through, and it doesn't really create any questions, or you know, he can relate very much to it. That he knows that if I say I need a day away from the courts, he knows why, and it's quite a nice feeling to not have to explain things. But at the same time, you know, I think that's probably the one downside, is you spend a lot of time constantly sharing your work and your personal life. But for me, it's a positive. I don't know about other people.
I was going to say, do you literally talk backhands, forehands? Do you chat about your actual game, or is that not, that's kind of a no-go? Do you
I
take
don't
advice?
know. It's a hard one, because yeah, we do talk about tennis, but I wouldn't say we go too much into it. I think it's more, if I need advice on something, I'll ask him. I mean, he's one of the best tennis players in the world. Why wouldn't I want his advice as to how to get better at tennis? So for me, it's a no-brainer to once in a while ask him, you know, his opinion on something. And also, I think we're very different tennis players, so it's quite nice to get the perspective of the other person, you know, which is normally the other person that you're playing. So it kind of helps you understand what you're doing on the court a little bit more. So I think that's where he reads the game so well, and his tactical things are insane in comparison to mine. He's very good at with his tennis IQ, and I always try and ask him those questions for sure.
Love that. I'm sure he takes a lot from you too. And we're heading into, I guess, the most intense fortnight of the year, the best fortnight of the year for the British players. And I would assume, I think you've spoken before about how you love Wimbledon. I'm sure not everyone loves it, but I love it, and I'm sure you love it. So, what is it like going into it this year when you've had the kind of season and the calendar year you've had, which I'd say has been the best of your career, and your top 30. You won your first kind of WTA 500 title in the last few months. All the good things are coming, and I just wonder, what is it like? Does it feel different going into Wimbledon when you've had that kind of season?
Yeah, I think it does. It is something that I have never experienced before. I've always come into my season being a lower ranked player, and someone who's just trying to capitalize um, off the season, where it's a grass court season and you can catch a lot of players out, and they're not that comfortable on the surface in comparison to what you are. So I think for me, it's another whole ball game. I think I'll be talking to someone like Alex very much so about this kind of thing, because he's someone who has been here week in, week out for the last 10 years of his career. So ultimately, I'll be taking a lot of advice from him, and as to how to handle it and how to deal with those pressure moments. But at the same time, look, I mean, for me, nothing changes. I have to remind myself that it's a process. I'm going through that process at the moment, and nothing really, it doesn't change that much. I think it's about focusing on myself and making improvements every single day with my team, and that's all I can ask. I try my best, and we see where we go.
Yeah, and I wonder, just reflecting on the last few months, San Diego in particular, where you won your first WTA 500 title, biggest title of your career. Alex flew out to watch your final as well. I remember that. That was a great moment. But I wonder, does it feel like things have finally been falling into place for you, or would that be unfair to say about your previous couple of seasons where things were kind of slowly building? Yeah, what does that kind of what does that title mean to you, and does it put you in a different kind of mindset when you go into kind of these big tournaments now?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge moment for me. That was me working so hard every single day with my team, and having no expectations, and just going into matches where honestly I would have been happy with a first round win. So for me, it was quite a surprising moment, because none of us had really expected it. We've been putting some serious level on the practice court, but as you know, it's not as easy to bring that onto the match court. So for me, it was a moment that showed the work that I've put in and the rate that I can improve at. And yeah, I think it was exciting for me. It was motivating, and it showed me where I want to be and where I can dream. I think that's the biggest thing. I think it showed me, if I want to set ranking goals, then I can set them pretty high, and not many people can say they've won a 500, so that one's always going to be in the back pocket, and I'm always going to have that trophy in that room. And also for Alex to kind of do it the same week, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't really know how it happened. I mean, I think Alex's coach at the time, Matt, he spoke it into existence. He told us that he wanted 500 points from both of us this week, and I mean, somehow it happened, and somehow it happened to be that it was a Saturday final for him, and he managed to get on the first flight, which then meant, there literally must have been one of those to come to San Diego, and he managed to be there. So yeah, that was a pretty touching moment, I think, for both of us, and one I definitely will remember.
Yeah, you were definitely tennis power couple of the week that week. It was pretty
Changes so
impressive.
quickly, that stuff.
um, and going into Wimbledon and just talking about Wimbledon again, I think it's hard to appreciate maybe what it's like being British number one going into Wimbledon, because yeah, it's a different kind of pressure we've seen over the years. Tim Henman talk about it, Andy talk about it, Emma talk about it. You had a taster of it last year, obviously. Now you're going into it with I guess even more expectation on yourself because of how you've kind of formed the last kind of calendar year. Have you had any weird moments? Because obviously Wimbledon Village is just packed with people during the championships. Have you had any weird moments where maybe you're going for your coffee in the morning and you're kind of spotted by anyone? Has that kind of happened over the years? Like any kind of memorable
Oh,
meetups with people?
yeah, I mean, it always ramps up at this time of year. I think everyone who loves tennis decides to come to the village. So actually, it's probably the last place that I find myself. Um, I try and run away from it as much as possible, but actually, there's some seriously good coffee places that I normally go to on a daily basis, which are just too hard to miss. So yeah, there's been a few times, but yeah, I mean, this time I might be making coffee at home for a good few weeks.
Fair enough. Hope you've got a good machine.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about your coach who's spoken in recent months about Biljana, who you've been with for a couple of years now. I just wonder what impact it's had on you. You've spoken a little bit about the impact of having a woman in your team because that's quite rare, still quite rare across the tour. I wonder if you can share a little bit about what that partnership has, what you've kind of gained from that partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I've gained a lot from it. I think it's, I worked with a lot of people over the years. My mum was probably one of my first tennis coaches, so I have spent a little bit of time, obviously, with females around me, and I do think that having that relationship with Biljana, it's been so good for me. It's so nice to have such a motherly instinct, and I think she kind of gets it. She knows when to push and pull very well, and I ask her a lot of advice on certain things on and off the court, and I think it's really nice, comforting feeling to know that she's there at any time, and yeah, it's been really helpful. And she also has a totally different style of the way that she coaches, so it's actually like no one that I've seen before. So it's very refreshing, and it's nice to do something completely different with Biljana. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder, has it been something that any other players have asked you about? I know there are some women on tour, but there's not a lot of women coaches, and I wonder if any other players have asked you about kind of what that dynamic has helped you with.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there haven't been many. I think a lot of people know Billy on the tour, and
Hmm.
actually some of them have worked with her as well. So I've shared a few memories and, opinions with those people who have worked with her as well. And like one of a close friend who I actually practiced with today, Dasha Saville, she worked with Biljana before, so we've got a nice little camaraderie going on. And whenever I can practice with people like that, I think it's a nice environment to have, and just good vibes. So I try and keep it as much as possible like that.
Love that. Just on a last point on Wimbledon, what can you pinpoint anything that's your favorite thing about kind of walking through those gates? Because fans who maybe haven't gone before might not appreciate how like special a place it is, and I wonder you get to do that a lot because you train there as well. I just wonder what would you pinpoint as your favorite part of being a British player that gets to enjoy that kind of environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just is the feeling that it gives you when you walk in. I can't really describe it. There isn't anything like a blade of grass out of place. It is pristine. It's perfect. It's one of those places that sometimes doesn't even look real, and you don't realize how much work goes into it. There's a lot. I have seen it behind the scenes around the championships, but they work so hard to keep everything in place, and it's that special feeling that it gives everyone, which really makes the difference to all the other slams. And there are a lot of tennis players who, even Alex, I don't know if I want to throw him under the bus, but he does love Wimbledon. I don't know if it's more than Australian Open, but it's definitely up there. And you see it with a lot of competitors. I think it's the home of tennis, and it's so historic, and it's got so much to it. But yeah, that special feeling that you walk through, you can't describe it. You have to see it for yourself, and you feel it, and then you realize it's actually real, even though it doesn't look it.
Yeah, I love that. Alex is going to get into trouble with the Melbourne lot. Yeah, I think it's something that even as a journalist you walk in and it's different to a lot of the other events that you go to. And as a Brit, I'm sure it makes up for the pressure that comes with it. It's kind of a privilege to be able to play at home as well at a slam. Like, not all players can say that. This year is slightly different, obviously, that a lot of players are going to go back to the clay for the Olympics. I wonder, am I right in thinking this would be your first Olympics?
Yes.
Okay, that's like big moment, especially for someone like you who I know loves to represent her country. Tell me about that. What does that kind of mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really wasn't sure I'd ever be in this position to qualify for it. So to actually be here and to be playing the Olympics, I think that's something, again, I have dreamt of as a little girl. Putting on that jacket when I was 7 is definitely what inspired me to play tennis, and it's going to be an experience. It's going to be something I will never forget, and to be a part of that, I feel very, very lucky, and I've also worked very hard for it, so I'm going to be taking it all in and enjoying the moment for sure. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge, obviously going back onto the clay again and, looking after body and stuff like that. So that will be my first priority, but I'm looking forward to it and doing my best out there and just having fun with it. I think I play my best tennis when I'm smiling, having fun on the court, and I just have to remind myself to do that. And I think it's going to be pretty easy to do in the Olympics.
Yeah, I bet. Do you have any memories of watching the Olympics? I don't know if you've been to watch in person, but at home, that kind of stick with you, moments or medals that were won that you remember in particular?
I do. I mean, I have multiple. I mean, someone who always inspired me actually, watching the Olympics was Jessica Ennis. She was someone who I held in high regard ever since I was super young. Watching her was pretty insane, and she's someone who you can tell she's worked her whole life and achieved what she wanted. So I think that's something that I'm always clawing after and trying to do myself. So I have a lot of respect for her, and I also obviously watched Andy win his. That was a huge moment for British tennis and for just Great Britain in general. So I was really pleased to see him get over the line as well. And they're definitely a couple of people that I have watched and been inspired by.
Were you at Wimbledon to watch Andy
I
win?
wasn't. No, I was
Okay.
watching it on TV. Honestly, I think I was away somewhere, probably playing another tournament when I was a junior. But no, I was definitely watching though. I remember every minute of it.
Yeah, just on Jess Ennis, because I know you were recently at the Laureus Awards and you ran into her and you
Yes.
kind of said what that meant to you. I just wonder, that must be surreal, meeting the person that kind of you've looked up to your whole life.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because I still can't believe it actually happened, and I think I was probably in shell shock when she actually spoke to me. So I don't even know what I regurgitated in that time, but I'm sure she listened to me talk some garbage for a little bit. But she was lovely. She was absolutely lovely, and again, I have so much respect for her and what she's done, and to actually meet her and to get inspired by someone like that, it pushes me even further and reminds me of the things that I've been striving for a very long time.
Just to finish off, I wanted to ask you about the last 12 months. What do you feel like you've learned the most in this season, which I know a lot of people are kind of, a lot of people will say has been your best season and has been the thing that's kind of propelled you to the next level, top 30. That's an incredible breakthrough. What's the biggest takeaway you're going to take from it? Has it lived up to all the expectations, I guess, you had of it too?
It's I think it's nice to finally see myself living some of the potential that I felt like I always had, and that I'm not crazy and that I actually have got that potential, which is really nice to see. And I think more than anything, it's just if you keep working hard and you stay there and you don't go anywhere, even through the tough moments, you can really come out the other side and excel. And I think that's a reminder for me through everything. And I felt like I had a couple of tough years in my life, and I've come out the other side, and it just makes it all worth it. So I just got to keep working hard, and hopefully I can take that next step. But yeah, it is really nice to see some reward for the hard work that I've put in. It feels great.
It's been great to see. Just to finally finish off, we ask one question of everyone who comes on the podcast. And the question is, who's the person, sportswoman or sportsman, who you admire most? It can be within your sport, outside of your industry entirely. It can be just a person. But yeah, I wonder who you admire and look up to the most.
Yeah, that answer's probably never going to change. That's my mum, sportswoman, mum, great person, great human, just someone who has been there and supported me every single step of the way, and I wouldn't be here without her. So that's always going to be my inspiration and my idol for the rest of my life, with whether it's tennis or something else.
Love that answer. Do you hit a ball with her sometimes? Or do you still play together?
Every year,
Really?
every year on the grass courts, we get out there and we play. We're obviously both very competitive at the same time, which is fab, because honestly, like, I mean, it just sums us up completely. So yeah, we're always trying to beat each other, but yeah, it's a really nice moment to share that with her, especially on the Wimbledon courts as well, where we're very privileged to be.
I was going to say that must feel really special. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and honestly, best of luck for the summer, for the Olympics and for Wimbledon. So thank you so much, Katie. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.